Dumj, dumj. Oh yeah, I usually have the starting soon, but I forgot to do that today because I'm professional. And professionals don't need that. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Hot Pole Position podcast. I'm your host, Adam Steele, and joining me today is a very special guest, Mr. Paul Goff from ZILLA CABS. How are you? No, this is going to happen a lot because of the slight latency. But yes, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks. All good.
Good, fantastic. So Paul is the CEO and used to be one-man band, but is slightly expanding from, in my opinion, one of the premier cabinet manufacturers worldwide. So he's with us tonight, and later on he's going to answer all the questions that you guys can throw at us within reason. But first we have to talk about the news, everything that's going on in music tech and the guitar world and computer music techie stuff, because that is what we do. So Jared Dines has a new signature model, Fender are making a one-off $10,000 Meteoro, Avantone are making new headphones, and Behringer have some news as well. Let's roll the intro. There we go, and we're back. So, how's your week been?
Yeah, good, thanks. Plenty of cabs going out, plenty of cabs coming in. Just enjoying the drizzle and the mist that's about. But other than that, all good.
Oh, it has turned, hasn't it? It's gone a bit... It's gone from scorching to very English overnight. Yeah. Cabinets coming in. Tell me about that. Is that, like, is that for recovering and stuff, or is that just, do you mean like the materials?
There's a bit of that. That was more me meaning customers calling us.
Yeah.
Stuff, so,
Good.
Yeah.
I know I've called you about 5 times this week.
Yeah, right.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so there's been plenty going on. I'm recovering a couple of my my own Mesa Boogies. I recovered your Mesa Boogie.
Yes. Well, what was yours and is soon to be mine. Yes, it will be mine. Yes. Yeah, we've got a few little projects going on, haven't we? Like I've got there's a 2x10 Fat Boy on the way rather soon, and at some point we might get this monitor wedge idea.
This wedge
done. Yeah. I mean, it seems to be a bit of an albatross, doesn't it? It started in January.
Yeah, it's about. I don't know if you know. We recently moved units, and we had a couple of saws down, and the saw that we would use for that kind of real bespoke stuff has been down. Now we can do most of the work we've been using on our other saws,
right?
But that one's been, because it's got some quite intricate angles involved. But it's back up and running. And I promise I have been working on it.
No, hey, I'm not complaining at all. It's an experiment. It's a whole new thing. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not a hands-on really kind of guy where I wouldn't have known that different saws do different things. I mean, we'll talk more about the specifics of cab building after we talked about the news segment. But yeah, I find it all fascinating. Not that I would ever be able to replicate what you're doing in like a million years, but I do find it fascinating. It's kind of like one-on-one with someone on the show, like how it's made, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah,
that is nice.
So to everybody in the chat, and I will say this later, we're going to be fielding questions to Paul after the news. So if you've got anything you would like to ask, then think about it now, write it down somewhere, and after the news, fire them away in the chat. We do have some questions already submitted from our patrons on Patreon, so they will get top billing. Thank you, as always, to our patrons. This show is brought to you by you through Patreon. So, yes, without further ado, let's look at the news. So, first off, Jared Dines and Sterling by Music Man have announced the new Jared Dines signature model. Now, I found this to be a little bit surprising. It's a Stingray. I mean, you must have seen the Stingray guitars. Have you seen these?
Oh, what, me? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
sorry, I know.
Yeah.
So it's I try and involve the guest in the news rather than just blasting through it as an anchor. But yeah, I mean, I've never actually played a Stingray guitar. I played Stingray basses quite a few times, but
I've seen them at shows and stuff. I never really get round to. No, I've never played one myself. Again, I've played the Stingray basses, but I tried.
I mean, they look cool. I mean, no offense to Music Man, they look a lot like a Stratocaster with humbuckers in, but then that's the Leo Fender influence. Must be. But, I mean, that's no bad thing. What surprises me a little bit is that there's guys like Jason Richardson has a Music Man actual USA top spec signature model, where Jared Dines, a famous guitar YouTuber, has opted to have a Sterling signature model, which is, I think that's made in Korea, I think they are.
Is that the more budget range?
Much more. This is $699 for one of these. And I've got to say, for the look of it, I think I want one. I mean, it's gold humbuckers, gold trem arm. It's got a single volume pot and a switch, which I released a video only this week, actually, where I've been upgrading my number one Strat, or at least it used to be a Strat, to be like this: 2 humbuckers, volume pot out of the way. I mean, aren't you generally a Les Paul kind of guy?
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, I am. Yeah. But I love the sound of the Strat. But I think the styles, the kind of playing styles that sound best on Strats and the tones you get from them, kind of stuff that I don't really play that much. And also, partly because I'm not good enough. So, but no, I love the sound of it. I mean, when we're doing videos or testing and stuff, because Joe's such a great player, Joe, one of the guys here, I tell, and he's got a really nice Eric Johnson signature Strat,
right?
Which sounds particularly nice. I tell him to pick that up all the time. It sounds so great. I think they look great. A lot of my favorite players have used them, but I am myself more Les Paul, sort of 355s and stuff like that.
I'm kind of split down the middle, but my main gripe, and I learn on a Strat type guitar, my main gripe is that volume pot being right next to your hand. Do you ever find that when you're doing the heavy stuff, you just kind of catch your finger on it and it just goes quiet, quiet, quiet?
I kind of... well, actually, I don't play them enough to,
right.
to experience that. But they... I use the volume and the tones a lot, and I switch pickups. I mean, when I'm playing, I play normally non-master volume amps or single-channel amps.
Right.
So I tend to be pushing the gain and then switching pickups and playing around with the volume on the guitar.
Yeah. And
I just find that, say, a Les Paul or a 355 are just so much easier to do that on. I mean, I do prefer the sound of those guitars, but just the ease of use for the way I play, I do find them just so much, like just the way the toggle switches and stuff like that. I mean, the 5-way on the Strat, I think, gives you more sounds, but they're kind of sounds that I don't necessarily won't really be using.
Yeah, they're not your sound. That makes sense. Yeah. To be fair, I converted my Strat to be like that, to be dual humbucker with that kind of typical.
I saw.
Yeah, because like you, I don't use the out of phase Strat position thing.
Yeah.
But I did change it so that I could coil split it and have coil splitty sounds without having to switch guitar. But yeah, I've just been informed by the chat that this actually has a stacked volume and tone knob, which is an interesting idea. See if I can make it a bit bigger there, yeah. But I think that's actually a big negative, because if you're playing on stage, imagine fiddling around with the same knob for volume and tone. You're going to catch it.
I find I've got a PRS Custom 22, which is, I guess that's similar wiring to what you've got on your Strat now. And I mean, that guitar sounds amazing. The variety of sounds you can get is just unbelievable for a guitar. I mean, you can really get pretty close to. I mean, you can totally do the Les Paul thing, but you can get pretty close to the kind of even telly kind of sounds. But the way the selectors and the tone, the volume, you push pulls and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, I just wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, that's yeah. Again, that's why I got the volume knob that I had to be a push, because that way you're not trying to pull it in the middle of a show. You literally just thump it with your fist and it clicks out.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because like my picking hand, once I start picking, it becomes just a big lump, really. And yeah, I don't really want to be kind of trying to use my separate fingers to pull knobs out in the middle of a show. But if I can get my fist and go bump, that kind of works.
That could be taken the wrong way there, Adam.
Well, hey, who knows?
Sorry.
I'm a bass player after all. Everything is larger as a bass player. But yes,
here we go.
Yes, indeed. These start shipping 21st of August, so in literally 1 month. And yeah, $699. I think the only thing I would do, apparently this is also the first 24 fret Stingray guitar, which is interesting.
Okay.
Although for me, that sacrifices where the neck pickup should go. Because that's why I like 22 fret guitars. I don't know about you, but it means the neck pickup can be in kind of the right place.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought of it that way. I don't have the skills to get right up there, so it's never really bothered me too much.
Yeah, I'm not known as a soloist. I very rarely go up to the dusty end, but I've definitely noticed that on guitars that have more frets or less frets, because you're moving the pickup around, you do get different sounds. Or at least you can't get those sounds from a 24 fret that you could from a 22 because you have to move the pickup.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I never really thought of it that way. But that makes complete sense.
It's all just physics, man. Anyway, moving on. This is apparently it's not a Leslie simulator. Dorna Prince Electronics have made a revolving speaker emulator. Apparently it's not a Leslie simulator. So what? This could be interesting to get hold of then. It's a Leslie simulator, let's be honest. It's handmade in Croatia, and for those pedal nuts out there, yeah, I mean, I do love a good Leslie. Have you ever played through a Leslie?
Yeah, they're mad. I love them.
Yeah.
The whole idea just makes me laugh. It's just such a physical item, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, spinning about, and that's how you get your sounds. This.
You ever thought about making one as like the ultimate challenge?
Well, this sounds like I'm making this up now, but I was speaking to Simon Merton last week. He does loads of tech work for some big names, AC/DC and people like that.
Okay.
And he was trying to get me to build one.
Right.
He's got some of the parts that are kind of hard to source, and it was one of those conversations where I was like, I would love to have the time.
Yeah.
And and when I was a kid, if I'd have thought that I'd be chatting with this guy and trying to find excuses to not build it, I think it'd be a really fun project. But it's taken me 6 months on your wedge. So
yeah. Yeah. So actually trying to build an actual Leslie with the rotating Viking horns, God, that would be for the longest time as a young kid, because I grew up in a family that were obsessed with like blues and that kind of thing, so you'd see them on all the stages and you'd see the horns inside, and I thought for a long time that the air blasting out of the horn was what made it go round. Because if you look at it, that kind of makes sense, like how an air horn would work, but obviously that is not the case. It's got a motor in there, but yeah. I just thought
that would be cool.
Yeah,
maybe we should build one.
Yeah. Hey, if we run that sort of like 150 watt Mesa through it, I'm sure enough air will come out of the horns and it will start spinning round.
I think the air from the fan would make that spin round.
Yeah. I do wonder, because aren't Leslie's, don't they have their own amp inside the Leslie? Usually.
I think they do. Yeah, they've got lots of. I think the technical term is gubbins in there. That's what Simon had got hold of. A load of, I think it was original stuff and the motors and things like that. Yeah, I think it's just you can get complete units, can't you? So it must do.
Because I was wondering if it would be actually easier to do it the other way and only have like the horns on a motor and the speaker with a crossover, and then just have a separate amp. Why would you not do that? Because then you can choose from your amp collection. It seems a bit silly to me not to be able to do that. Then,
I think I assume maybe it's not that kind of thing isn't like a perfect sound, is it?
Well, no, because a lot of the early Leslies, they're all valve amps, with their own breakup and their own character, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more. I always think of those kind of pieces of kit as you're going for a vibe. You know, when you plug in a real old 50s amp, and really doesn't sound very good.
No,
but it also sounds amazing just because it's so imperfect, but it does one thing so well. Why change it?
I think the term for that is mojo. It's that thing where it's crap, but everyone likes the crapness. Just for those viewing at home, I am drinking an old-fashioned cocktail. If you want to drink along with the stream, drink responsibly and make sure you're of age to do so. But yeah, this is kind of the end of my week usually, is the podcast, because I graft right over the weekend. Typical studio engineer. But yes, I've been away this week, so the content's been a little thin on the ground. But we'll be back to full force this week. It's going to go absolutely nuts. So yes, this apparently Dave Gilmour uses one of these, and that means it must be good. It's got fast and slow, so you can do the thing that you do with the Leslie, speeding it up and slowing it down. And then it's of course got on and off, but they are $340, so it's not cheap, but probably a lot lighter, easier, and all sorts of, easiness compared to having an actual Leslie on stage.
Some of those Leslies can cost a fortune, can't they?
Yeah, the vintage ones, absolutely. Good God. I played through one at Real World Studios a couple of years back, and that was beautiful, man. It was a proper vintage, like 830, I think the model was, something like that. My memory fails me now, but oh yeah, you played one chord on that organ and it just went. Oh yes.
They look so beautiful as well. I think they actually made them like they actually look nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly have a thing where you look at it and go, ooh, or you just kind of pass it by if it's in the woodwork with everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Class C clipping, whatever that means. Yes. Yeah, that's what it says in chat. But yes, so moving on. ElectroHarmonics have a new stereo looper. They call the 1440. And I think this whole thing's getting a little bit silly at this point. Because loopers, I mean, where can you go with a looper in a form factor? So they've gone to the point where it's got unlimited overdubs, which is great, but up to 24 minutes of audio on it. Who the hell is making a 24-minute loop?
Oof, I don't know. Maybe you want to practice one of those old Iron Maiden songs twice.
And then play along with it.
Rhyme with the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah.
I just bought a looper yesterday.
What'd you get?
First ever looper.
Ooh.
I got the RC10.
Oh, right. The Boss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a single stomper? Is it a slightly wider one, the RC10? Or? I
think that's the wider thing. I'm showing that I don't actually know that much about it. It seems to have loads of lights and stuff, so I assume it's got just about everything on it. I was going to get the kind of mid-range one that they do, but they were out of stock, so I went for that. It had more lights on it. I think it's got, I don't know, don't quote me on this, and I'm not going to be disappointed if it doesn't have it, but I think it's got some drum beats on it.
Oh, a lot of them do, yeah. Or at least something that passes for drum beats. Once you start feeding it through a guitar amp, it just sounds like... It's like...
Oh, I don't know. I normally just use a tuner and a wah, so this thing for me is pretty technical.
Space age.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, this one seems pretty cool. It's got like an octave function and reverse and some clever stuff. Apparently... Oh, right. It's got a loop manager app. So you can download audio from it and send audio to it, which I've actually seen quite a few people with looper pedals where you'll make a track beforehand and load it into the looper. And then play along with that pre-made thing. So you don't have to take a drum kit and all that kind of stuff to a show. You just hit play on the looper. So
I think all this stuff's amazing, but it's a little bit past me. I kind of I really appreciate what some people do with them. I think it's great. I think they're great for. I'm getting mine as a practicing tool.
Yes,
I've got a bit sloppy, so I kind of figured I had to go on Joe's looper, and I was I don't know. I was going to say amazed, but it was like the opposite of amazed. Just amazed at how sloppy things had got.
Oh dear. But you're like, right, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm going to practice.
Fair enough. Well, yeah. This thing's an absolute beast for anyone who's interested. This is $220, and I've seen loopers from like TC Electronics going for 20 or 30, and that's for the discerning connoisseur of the loop. Good luck to you. That's what I say. But yeah, if you're absolutely mental and you need a looper, ElectroHarmonics 1440, which is like how many rotations? 4 rotations? Because I think they started with the 360, then they made the 720, and now they've made it double good, so they've called it the 1440, which is lots and way more than most people are gonna need. Which is why a lot of people are gonna buy it, I suspect, because it's like this must be the best because it is the latest of everything. So yeah,
it's got more numbers.
It's got more numbers, yes. So Akai have made a whole new digital audio workstation software. They're called MPC Beats. Apparently, it's a complete beat making and remixing studio for free, which is really interesting. That in this world where we're oversaturated with too many, there's Pro Tools, there's Logic, there's Cubase, there's Reaper. Can't go without mentioning that. The Akai have gone, you know what? We make these drum machines. You know the Akai, like, square pad beat maker.
Yeah.
So they've evolved over time into, like, little workstations that you can actually create a whole sequence song on. And so now they've gone, let's make that as software. It's like, and it's free. So for anyone who wants to make beats and doesn't want to pay any money at all, hey, got something for you. Hip-hop crowd. Here we go.
Put it on your phone and send it over to the 1440 or whatever it's called.
Yeah. It's funny because it's true. But yeah, apparently it supports VSTs as well, so you can put custom plugins in there. And you can actually add this as a plugin in other software as well. So if you just want this as like a beat-making thing to add in to Pro Tools or whatever, apparently that's an option. So, yeah. All right, moving on. Here's the one I was talking about before. Fender's custom shop, Ron Thorne, builds a $10,000 one-off Meteoro. So
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, the Fender Meteoro was launched 2 years to a storm of interest, although I wonder how many of them actually sold. It looks kind of nice, but it just kind of, to me, it looks like an extension of the whole, like, Jaguar, Mustang, Jagstang thing with the offset body.
Yeah, this is probably a bad point to say that right before we came on, my screen froze, so I can't see this.
Oh, yay!
So I wish I could. I quite like the Jaguars and the Jazz Masters, so I'd like to see this, but yeah.
All right, 1 second. Let's see if I can fix that for you. Because now you've told me that, I can press some buttons. There we go.
Oh, here we go. I'm looking.
Fixed.
Oh, here we go.
There we go. Yeah, we had a
Yeah,
slight crash at the very start of the stream, and yeah, that was great. So, technical issues, gotta love them.
Um, yeah, that's not for me. I'd buy a Jaguar.
Well,
Well, they used to have a guitar called the Tornado or something with the two humbuckers.
I think
Is it
so.
Tornado or
Yeah, or something
Right.
like that. I'm sure someone in chat will mention what it was.
I've always liked the big block inlays though.
Yeah, I love the block inlays. My number one bass right behind me here has got block inlays in.
Oh yeah.
That's just the thing for me. I mean, when I'm a big Rush fan, and they went away for a few years in the 90s and early 2000s, and when they came back, Geddy Lee was playing a jazz bass with blocks, and I was just like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And so I have a jazz bass with blocks.
It's nice when you do that though, isn't it? When you see an artist like that you really respect. I did it with Les Pauls.
Yeah.
Slash plays a Les Paul, so I went and bought one. And then it actually turns out that it is your favourite instrument.
Yes.
Kind of nice. So you're not just left with some old tat that you spent loads of money on because someone else plays it.
Yeah.
It's actually...
That's it. I've been through quite a few guitars and basses, especially basses, because I'm bass first and foremost. And yeah, as soon as I got that jazz bass, I was like, right, this is great. I'm just going to change everything on this, and then it'll be perfect. So it's had new pickups, new tuners, new electronics, you know, but it's still the same bass. Maybe. But yeah. So I did think this was quite a nice, pretty guitar, and apparently Ron Thorne is one of their master builders at Fender. So it's pretty cool, but I mean, it just looks like, yeah, it's ash. It's a piece of ash done in white.
Oh wait, hang on. You said this is the $10,000 one?
Yeah.
Oh right, I don't know.
Yeah,
All right.
You start asking the questions, don't you? Like, why? Why is it that much? But yeah, I mean, it's the whole blues lawyer thing, like Marty just said in chat, is that somebody out there noodles away for half an hour every week and has lots and lots of spare cash, so is going to buy it.
Yeah. I think those things, they go up in value, don't they? So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that's what guitars are about.
I mean, actually $10,999, so $11,000. Thank you very much.
Oh right.
Yeah, because that changes
That hasn't
everything.
made me want it anymore.
No.
Or any less.
I like the idea of it. I like having the blade switch right here and then the volume and tone further down, almost Les Paul style. Riley in chat says it was the Tornado.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Was that an important?
No.
Okay, cool. Was it the missus?
I don't know.
Right,
I don't know who it was. This is how bad I am at tech. I bought a new phone and I pressed a button and it doesn't let me store numbers.
Oh.
So I never know who's calling me now.
That's weird. That's why every time I phone you, it's like, "Hello, Zilla Music."
Hello, Zilla Music.
Yeah,
that is why.
It's Adam again. Yeah. I do wonder when I'm calling you for the third time in a day. It's like, surely you should have my number by now. But yeah.
No.
Tech.
It seems really rude, but yeah, that is why.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Go. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Someone's call being rerouted. They're trying every number. I do that. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes I'll call you and you'll be like up to your elbows in glue.
Well, I was going to do this in the studio because they don't ever have any phones in there, but it seems I've done it in my office.
Yeah, which is where all the phones are, of course.
Yeah, right.
Makes sense. All right, let's move on then. So Avantone, who make the little grot box speakers that a lot of studio engineers now, are making these new headphones, planar headphones. This is really interesting to me. They look horrible. They look square and boxy and disgusting. But have you ever heard of planar headphones?
No, I haven't.
Right, planar headphones. The way that the headphones are, speakers in general usually work. Have you ever used quad speakers? You know, the big electrostatic, the brand Quad.
Oh, no, I haven't. No.
Right, okay. So it's a similar thing. Generally, speakers, I mean, would be your thing. Speakers, generally, you know, the magnet moves in the middle, sound radiates out. There's kind of a center point, and then the sound, wherever your ear is in relation to the speaker, it's going to sound different. Planar don't work like that. They're basically a big sheet, and they've got like it's an electrostatic field, so the entire thing moves.
Okay, cool.
So it doesn't move as much to get the same volume and arguably more detail, a lot of people say. But it means that there's no point of like imperfection and no sweet spot. It's just, It's like Quad in the 70s and 80s made these massive hi-fi speakers that you actually had to put a couple of 100 volts charge across.
Okay, right.
But I've tried them a few times and they are jaw-dropping because you can sit in the middle of them and it's just perfect.
Okay.
And, yeah, so apparently you can get those as headphones now. Hopefully they're not running a couple of volts, 100 volts across where your head is. But
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. They're not pretty, but I mean, they're $400, and I would put money on it that these things are incredibly accurate. And
I take it that they're for studio, right? It's studio use?
Yeah, I would have thought so. They're open back headphones, which means they're going to let all the sound in and all the sound out. So they're probably not ideal on a plane or on the bus.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, actually, the headphones I'm wearing right now, these are open back. These are Sennheiser HD 650s, which are fairly well known in the mixing trade as one of the best sets of mixing headphones that you can get without spending stupid money.
Yeah.
Because these were 300 odd quid for these, but these have been around the world with me. These are more than paid for themselves. But to get the next level of quality, arguably, you stick a 1 in front of it, and it gets, diminishing returns. But the fact that these are $400, so it's going to be about 400 quid, I think that's almost reasonable, depending on how they actually sound. Because a lot of headphones are designed to sound really nice, if you know what I mean. They're not meant to sound accurate. They're meant to just like have a nice thumpy bass and some sweet highs and all. Most headphones are made for people who don't care, who just want to stick something on their head and listen and go, oh, that's nice.
Well, mixing and listening to the final product's two completely different things, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. But that's the thing. I would have thought, hopefully, with planar drivers and that kind of thing, these would be closer to just kind of flat and neutral, but in a way where like all the sub bass is actually there and all that kind of, So I will reach out to Avantone and see if they'll give me a set. These probably won't, but you never know.
That's worth a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't ask, you don't get.
See if I can get a set as well.
Yeah. Yeah, set of Avantones for every guest that I get on the show.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
You know what? I thought they were really ugly 2 minutes ago, but they're growing on me.
It does with stuff like this, doesn't it? There's a company called Stax that have made headphones like this for years and years, but they, in my opinion, again, they generally look like they're a lot less comfortable because Stax headphones have got these big kind of slabs, and you start to look like a Cyberman from Doctor Who. And but from what I hear from reviews from people who use them, a lot of people swear by them and won't go back. So yes, that would be interesting. Yes. Yeah. And so, moving on to a more tech thing. I know you're not particularly techie kind of dude, but just quickly, Apple made the announcement recently that they're not using Intel processors anymore at all. They're actually going to make all their own processors for all their own desktop stuff now. And they're all licensed from a company called ARM. Now, Nvidia make graphics cards. Nvidia are massive, but they fell out with Apple years ago. Now, it looks like Nvidia might be buying ARM, the company that might be making every processor that Apple use, full stop. Despite the fact that they kind of hate each other. That could be interesting.
Weren't ARM sold a few years back?
They were to a SoftBank group. So you know more than you're letting on.
My missus is a computer programmer.
Right, okay. Yeah, so
I mean, I don't really... I hear what she says. I don't really listen. That they obviously something's sunk in.
Yeah, obviously so, because that. Yeah, I didn't even know that until I'd ridden. I had read this article. There we go. I can do English sometimes. But yes, SoftBank Group Corp, a Japanese company, I believe, currently own ARM Holdings, who are the company that license out ARM to companies like Samsung and Apple and all the other people.
Yeah,
and
that's funny. That I wonder where that sits, because I seem to remember when they got bought, there was something to do with about, because they're a British company, or
yes,
weren't
yeah,
they?
they were.
Yeah, and I think there was something to do with they didn't want to lose that kind of business from this country. So whoever bought them, SoftBank, I guess, promised to like double the workforce, put lots of investment in stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe that was just a long-term plan. Say that and then sell it off to someone else who doesn't have to keep the jobs here. I don't know.
It's entirely possible that they did that, but from what I'm aware, ARM as an actual company are surprisingly small, because they don't manufacture anything. They don't actually make much themselves. They license their technology out.
Yeah.
So as long as they've got a room full of very clever researchers and technological development team, yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that a lot of what ARM's value is to the actual company ARM Holdings, I believe, is the fact that they can license their technology out to people like Apple, who then Apple have a license to then make their own versions of ARM chips however they see fit within said contract.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Nvidia seem to not get along well with other companies, and so it could be interesting when because Nvidia's shares have risen 76% this year, which is really interesting to me. That they're as of last week, I think it is, Nvidia's share value is higher than Intel's, which is completely unheard of and completely off the wall, massively out of the blue, really.
Yeah.
Where I think it's because Nvidia are growing year on year, and they've got new products here and new avenues here, and Intel have just kind of gone, yeah, we've got the same stuff and we've not got the next generation of stuff yet.
Well, this is where everything is at now. I mean, you think like we were talking about loopers and stuff. I know it's different. Well, it's similar kind of technology, but it's probably 20 years behind or something. But you think when we were kids, none of that stuff existed.
No.
I remember the DD3 would have had 2 seconds of delay.
Yeah.
And that was like, and then the next one came out and it had 8 seconds, and that was amazing. So this is.
Yeah, so Marty, my mod in chat, is saying that ARM was sold to SoftBank for $24 billion, which I would imagine most of that is in the intellectual property value rather than the actual office and the people in it.
Yeah. Maybe they could buy one of them Fenders.
Yeah. Just have it hung up on the wall. What's that for? I just liked it. That's when you know someone's got money.
I think I'd keep that in his case.
Yeah. God, who was it? There was another blues lawyer, someone who had a lot of money, CEO of a company or someone, who bought a few weeks ago what's his name? Kurt Cobain's MTV Unplugged acoustic. And you just imagine him sat at his desk in between meetings just strumming away on this priceless acoustic guitar, just going and playing Smoke on the Water really badly or something. But just because I can.
Wonderwall.
Yeah. Oh God, the sacrilege playing Wonderwall on Kurt Cobain's.
I think he'd love it.
Oh, that's painful. Yeah. All right, now it's time for Behringer Corner. Behringer Corner. Every week we try and have Behringer news because they are our favourite budget kind of team. And so Behringer have released images of an ARP 2500, or at least clone modules, in Eurorack format. Apparently Eurorack is kind of the standard that Behringer are pushing for synthesizer modules, because it means that having an ecosystem like that's good for everybody, which makes sense. But it's fascinating to me that Behringer have been kind of ripping off loads of companies recently. They basically make Moogs now. They make ARP 2500s. They make all sorts of these synths where the copyrights must have expired or something like that, where they're not going to get sued into oblivion for doing it. And so they've gone, you know what? Just because we can, we're going to do all of these. And it makes some sense because Uli Behringer, Mr. Behringer himself, is actually a keyboard nut. So now he's a multi-billionaire and he's got all these factories in China. He's probably just gone, right, well, all these vintage synths you can't get anymore, I'm going to make them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I used to be really into my synths.
Right.
Back in the day, when I was at uni. I always wanted to build one.
Oh, proper modular
I
monster.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, I think, modular synths, where people either look at you like, what's that then? Or you mention it and they go, oh, and they talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go in a local guitar shop and one of the keyboard guys had a modular thing. You mentioned the word Dopefer and he was off.
Yeah. I've forgotten all that stuff now, but it looks cool.
I mean, it's got red, green, blue, and yellow knobs on it. It must be cool.
What more do you want?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, apparently the 2500 is one of the world's most desirable synths, probably because it's quite hard to get hold of. So making a Eurorack version of it sounds pretty clever to me.
Yeah.
Now, last but not least, there's a second Behringer Corner item. So the 909 drum unit is one of the more famous drum units, especially in hip-hop, but also just in pop in general. And Behringer are making a version of that as well. And apparently the prototypes popped up on eBay. Someone swiped one from the factory and gone, right, this is going on the Fleabay. From Stockport as well, which is literally round the corner from me. I might turn up and say hello tomorrow and go, yeah, you got
Give
that.
it a razz.
Got that 909 lying around. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Give you a couple of hundred cash in hand. Say no more, say no more. Stockport is literally round the corner from the studio. So that's hilarious. Yes. So
that's like one of their sample things, the prototypes.
Yeah, so it seems that way. They've said in the news and photos they've called it the RD9, and this has RD909 on it. Maybe they had to change the name because of copyright issues. So this might be a trial run beta version, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that they've changed from then, which would make sense. I mean, it's the kind of thing where when...
Right, I'm moving these phones. Sorry, Adam.
It's all right. Yeah, when Roland give you a call and say, you cannot call this the 909, we will sue you into oblivion, I suppose that's when you change it.
With those kind of things, I'm not a massive fan of people ripping off products, that other companies made. They've put the money in and all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, I imagine you're just going to get new tools into kind of kids' hands that won't be able to afford. They might not be as good or might not last as long, but...
Maybe. The other thing that always strikes me with Behringer stuff like this is that the actual 909 drum machine probably hasn't been made in at least 20 years. So if you can find one, they're so popular, you're paying through the nose.
Yeah.
So...
That's kind of what I mean. I mean, if you imagine if you're a kid and you're trying to get into all that kind of stuff, and learn, like you can't afford all what is now like vintage gear. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny when I started learning. We're probably roughly the same age. All the rack gear and stuff from the 90s, all the outboard processors, you could get them in bargain bins.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted that cheap old analog crap anymore, because digital was the future. And now you look at it, and some of this stuff that you could get in a bargain bin for a tenner is worth 500 quid, and you're going, why didn't I buy all of it?
There's a funny story about how I kind of funded the start of Zilla. I used to tour a lot, and my favorite amps were always the JCM 800s and the JMPs.
Yeah.
And this was sort of early 2000s, and I used to use a clean, a dirty, and a spare. And as they go around, as you'd be touring around, and you'd get one break, I'd just look in the free amps and pick 800 up for 100 quid or whatever, and dump the broken one in my mum's garage. And then when I finished all that and started the business, I probably had about 30 of them.
Wow.
And they'd gone up from £100. I mean, I bought some for like £50 and stuff like that. And on eBay, they were going 500-600.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I was kind of lucky in that respect.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with all these like classic drum machines and bass units and all that kind of stuff. All these classic keyboards that are classic now. But in like 2002, 2003, everyone was looking at them like, that's from the mid-90s. That's crap, that is.
Yeah.
You know, like the garish colours and all the kind of beige plastic. And everyone's looking at it going, beige plastic? Ugh. This is 2004, mate. We don't have that. We have computers now. Sell it second-hand. I mean, there was a second-hand shop I went in Leeds that had a rack full of the most classic gear you can think of now. And they were all going for about 30 quid each. And I think back now and I'd scream at my former self and go, why didn't you just... And then my former self goes, well, I didn't have any money. And I go, oh, well, yeah, good point. Oh, well. Yeah, absolutely mental. Don't suppose you've got any of those JMPs lying around, have you?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a hoarder. I've got tons of them.
Jesus. And that was... the end of the news. The news. So, now I think it's time for the bit that's really interesting with our guest, Mr. Paul Goff, is it's time for questions from the audience. So, I'll pull up a few that we had pre-vetted by me. And so, here's one that I think I know the answer to, but it's definitely worth going through for people who've not had these conversations just between you and me. From Marty, when designing a closed back cabinet for more than one type of speaker, do you calculate the volume of the enclosure or is it more trial and error? Also, as a follow on, do you measure the amount of influence one speaker's movement on the others?
If you're designing a new cab, you will go between, or I'll go between, I will use the equations and that kind of stuff, but no, most of it's you might put it down to trial and error, but it's more you kind of know and you tweak. I mean, we built, I don't know, I probably built 10,000 cabs, half of which have been custom cabs,
quarter of which have been through my studio.
Right. So you kind of get as though you know what's going to happen with the woods and everything you're putting in there. I mean, ported cabs, there's a lot of work, but even still, the equations and the rules that you go by are maximum 50%.
Right. So you do start with one and then finally tweak a little. I suppose with being a relatively small company, even now on the world stage, small is a relative term, but you still hand make every single cab, right?
Oh, well, we have a CNC that does a lot of the cutting, but we've still got all the saws. We still occasionally hand joint them, just to keep the skills up. I think the CNC does take a little bit of that hand out of it, but we still spend the same amount of time on the cabs. I think it just means that you spend more time kind of inspecting them and spend it on other things. Right.
I suppose if you get more time to actually do quality control rather than just sawing, that makes sense. But I mean, what I'm getting at is kind of if you find that it's like, oh, let's make this cab a little bigger next time, is that something where you could just go to CNC, press a couple of number buttons and it'll just...
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that stuff helps with consistency.
Yeah.
And that's it takes you the time that your hands are on the wood, which is really important. you kind of hear if there's any voids in there and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
you ditch those. It's still the same amount of time that you've got on there. We probably spend more time now on breaking in and testing the speakers in those cabs,
Right.
to make sure that's all good.
Good stuff. Right, so I've got two questions which are very much the same thing. One from Nicola in chat, which is, with Zilla, you tend to avoid MDF. Is that a preference or a reason behind it? And a very similar question, are you looking into alternative cabinet material?
Yeah, MDF, I mean, technically that's what a lot of people say you should build them. It's very consistent material and that. I won't have it in the workshop because it's carcinogenic. So I won't touch the stuff, and I wouldn't have anyone that works for me or with me touch the stuff because it's bad for you. But as far as how it sounds, I don't actually like how it sounds. I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, the mojo thing. Guitar sounds and tones, that kind of stuff, so non-linear, it's so imperfect what we go for.
Yeah.
Often you'll find, like the equations with designing a cab for treating them as Helmholtz resonators and things like this, all the science behind it, it may get you something that's technically perfect, but there's when do guitarists ever play stuff that's technically perfect? When does the technically perfect sound ever be the one that goes, whoa, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, as far as other materials go, yeah, we're always kind of experimenting. We use a particular kind of birch ply. Sounds really nice. It's just got a really nice natural EQ. We do get other forms in. We spend quite a lot of time on R&D and things like that. I like pine cabs, but supply's bad over here, so consistency goes out the window, and I don't like that. I like to kind of know how it's going to sound before it gets built. And we've been experimenting with some tone woods and stuff, which I think the birch ply is the best sounding, but they look pretty. So
that makes sense. I mean, if I would imagine that the whole argument of tone wood is people being indecisive, and birch is something you've come to, as an industry, as a kind of, yeah, we use this because it sounds good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean with the cabs, the consistency is really a really big thing that you need to take into account. I mean, how many times have you picked up, say, two Les Pauls and they've sounded different, but they're the same spec?
Oh, completely.
They're down to the wood.
Yeah.
But with a plywood and with MDF and other sheet materials like that, they do sound, or they should sound, very consistent. It's just the MDF sounds consistently something that I don't like.
Yes. Yeah, I've never been a big fan of MDF. I've got an old Marshall cabinet that was one of the lower end ones in the studio that's made of MDF, and I've never liked it. I just have it because it's there. But no, I suppose I'm an endless tone chaser, and as soon as I think before I was even aware of Zilla at all, I tried a Bogner 4x12, which was all made proper birch ply, and I just stood there with my jaw open like, what is this? Because it made such a difference. But one thing I suppose that would be nice is something like, I don't know, if you were doing a veneer of something like maple on the top of a birch, that kind of thing could work quite well. I mean, a lot of drummers use maple for their. Is that something you've considered, or is that just expensive and heavy?
We've made a few custom ply cabs. I think that the drums tend to be birch and maple, birch or maple.
Right.
I think, well, that's from my limited experience of drums.
Yeah. Those are the two I see most often.
Maple, again, I'm not really that aware of maple plies in this country. They don't seem to be that something that's around that much. As far as solid maple goes, it looks really nice. But again, the inconsistencies of using solid woods, hardwoods, softwoods, you're just introducing too much mojo.
Well, yeah. There is always that element. I suppose the consistency is pretty important. Chris in chat does ask as a final one on this topic. Do you think of cab woods as tone woods?
Yeah, I mean, everything's got its own sound. The MDF, fiber boards, everything's got its own sound. Like I was saying, with the consistency, they sound consistently the same. I guess so, in the sense of the word that it, for me, it sounds the best. The birch ply, a nice soft birch ply, is my favourite sound for cabs. So yeah, I guess if it gives the best tone, in my opinion.
Well, I suppose at the end of the day, people come to you for two things, and that's your craftsmanship and your opinion on what a good sound should be. And yeah, so I suppose if that's what you've come down on is that I think birch sounds good, then that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean we do experiment with loads of stuff. I mean a lot of that's been done in the past, but I mean we experiment with different birch plies as well.
Do tell. I wasn't aware there were different types, but then I'm not a craftsman, so
it'd be two different things that would change the kind of what you'd call the different birch plies. Would be the forests that they come from,
right?
And the other would be, it's actually the glues in between the plies, which do sound a bit different.
Okay. So
sorry, I kind of went off topic, but you were talking about the maple and the birch and the drum.
Yeah, the reason I was thinking that is like a lot of drum companies get maple plies to make drums out of. I was wondering if that was kind of harder to work with, because I know that maple can famously be quite sticky to work with.
Yeah, that would be more when you're using it as a wood rather than a sheet material.
Right.
So the reason we wouldn't do that is it's going to be a hell of a lot less consistent. But with linking it into the custom woods and stuff, my favourite drum sound or drum kit is, it's a Tama kit. I can't remember the name now, but it's got they made a custom ply where it's got a layer of Behringer inside. So we messed around with this, and I made a couple of cabs. Misha from Periphery got one where they custom plies, where it was birch, beech, and Behringer.
Yeah, kind of stacked up. Yeah. That's what a lot of drum makers do. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I suppose then you get the rigidity of some and the tone of. This is all supposition for me, but
to be honest, the single layer of Behringer, and I think there were other factors that were giving it certain sounds.
Right.
But it was cool, and it looked really nice with the bare wood because you have the different coloured layers.
Oh, so did you go with kind of a polish at the end? And
No, we got it in Tolex.
Oh, right, okay.
I took some photos beforehand.
Well, have you ever considered doing cabinets that have got like a polish on the outside rather than Tolex? Is that something you've done?
Yeah, they're on the way.
Oh, hello. I didn't know that. I wasn't fishing for an answer there. That's just interesting. So let's have a look. Next question here from Danny. How long does it usually take from initial design to final production product for a new design?
Oh,
or can there be an answer to that?
No, I'm constantly doing stuff. Some cabs have taken 10 years to hit the standard range.
Right.
So sometimes I just go on it, and it might be a month. It can be anything. It's partly down to where the kind of market lies and what people are wanting. Tastes change and that kind of stuff. Often what happens is we've got, I don't know how many standard cabs we've got, maybe 2 dozen from 1x12s, or 112s up to 412s, 612s, whatever. And because we're constantly making custom cabs, sometimes you have a little gem that surprises you, and you kind of like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
And then there's other things which we treat as they're custom cabs, but they're designs that come up a lot of the time. This is where the Studio Pro came from when we were in London. Every week we had a session player come in, and they'd always spec the same cab. Right. So it got tweaked a little bit. And I mean, down to the speakers, the size within millimeters, everything. Wow. So we kind of tweaked to well, that was just me then. I tweaked to what I liked the best there, and it came into the range within, I don't know, a month or two, something like that. Right. But there's a whole load of designs that I've got that are technically custom cabs, but ones that we sell quite a lot of. If a customer comes and says, oh, I want this, and I'll say, well, I really like this design, it's not a standard one, and they go for it. And so yeah, it can be anything. Right. Somewhere between a month and 10 years.
Perfect. That just to follow on from that, I mean, how you were saying about tastes have changed over the years. Is there anything you've noticed in particular? Because from my perspective, from what I knew from the outside, before we'd ever talked, so I think it must be about 7 years since I bought my first ZILLA cab. Yeah, it's been that long, mate. I was talking to my other half recently, and I ordered my first one, which was a Studio Pro, about 7 years ago, because that's when we first moved in together, and I got my first one then. Yeah. So that's how I can kind of date it. But at the time, 4x12s on your website weren't really a thing, because the in thing at that time was the Fat Boy was the thing. Yeah. So has that changed, or is that still?
No, Fat Boy is still the biggest seller. But at that sort of 7 or 8 years ago, I'd say half of the people that were getting the cabs were very much into that kind of genty kind of stuff. Yeah. Now we still sell loads of cabs to those guys, and it's nearly always the Fat Boy or the Super Fat Boy. But as we've grown, we seem to have grown more into sort of a traditional sort of bluesy rocky kind of stuff. So Studio Pros, modern, big sounding 1x12s, that kind of stuff. Right. But I think nearly everyone's moving from 412s to 212s. And now a lot of people going from 212s to 112s, and vertical cabs as well.
Yes, I have probably the biggest vertical cab. But
oh yeah, you've got the vertical 4x12, haven't you?
Yeah, the silliest cab in the world. I love it. It's great. But yeah, whenever I actually go out playing a show, I tend to take a 112 or maybe a 2 if I'm feeling fancy. But I'm the odd one out. I'm the weirdo who's stuck in the studio. So I'm like, I don't care if the cab's big. It's never going further from that side of the room to that side of the room, and it's got wheels.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, I completely appreciate that people don't want to be taking big cabs out anywhere, because who wants to be on stage with a 4x12 when you've got the sound guy glaring at you, and you've got half the front row glaring at you because they're going deaf? And
I don't know, me, I don't care what the sound guy says. Yeah. No, I mean, you can't be. I mean, this is the guy who yesterday was asking about a 6x12.
Yes, so indeed.
I'm not buying that.
Well, like I said, I wouldn't take that out with me. That's definitely one that for me will be as loud as it can go in the live room, and will probably never leave the live room.
I think there's something to be said for that kind of that amount of air that's hitting you on stage. Yes. That's never going to go. I mean, we still sell 4x12s. I've got 4x12s that I use myself. But that's never going to go. But it's just the impact you get.
Well, yeah, there is definitely something to be said for that. But, I mean, if you've got a Fat Boy or something like that that's up on a case or something, I mean, the power handling on them is way more than vintage cabs could handle. So I'd imagine you still get a lot of that thump.
Oh yeah, you're getting a lot of that thump. I mean, I think the Fat Boy will get you kind of 80% there. Of what on a 4x12, it will give you a lot of those admirable qualities that you want from a 4x12. I just mean live is, I know we're going to come back to it. It's that kind of vibe and the energy that, you know, gets created. The audience are having a load of air just hitting them in the face. You know, you've got it's so imperfect, but it's kind of fun, and I don't think they'll ever go. But yeah, you tonally, sure, yeah, the sound guy wants you to go right down in volume, and in that case, you probably are in a lot of ways better off with maybe a 1x12, because at least then the speaker's going to get a chance of getting cooking.
Yeah,
you know. Rather than having 4 or 8 speakers just like moving a little bit.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've been doing a lot of live sound for a relatively small venue over the last couple of years, and like brick walls and all that kind of stuff. So if you turn a 100-watt amp above 0.3, it's already echoing around the place. The best amp I heard in that space, no word of a lie, was a mid-80s PV Bandit.
Oh yeah,
you know, the 112, but the older ones, because the older ones have got this weird thing in them where if you smack a chord, it saturates. But yeah, I mean, however the hell they did that, it was genius. And this thing was on 10, but in this space, it didn't even need miking up, and it was just beautiful. And
this is it, the imperfection of guitar tones.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that would have been the best sound for that room?
But I suppose that's part of the whole move back to things like lunchbox amps, which are trying to capture that thing of, you know, little Fender Princetons and that kind of thing, but with more gain, because, you know, generally speaking, I think the average guitarist these days has a lot more gain than they would have done back in the small amp days. Yeah. So I digress. Next question. This is from the unfortunate one. So they want to ask, are you planning on designing anything in the way of home recording? So dead silent, like ISO boxes, anything like that? Have you tried anything like that? Have you got any plans?
Yeah, we've we made 2 ISO boxes for the guys at Shrek the Musical.
Right, okay.
And they said I could do whatever. I said, what colour do you want? And they said, you can do whatever colour you want. So I thought, right, I'm doing slime green.
Yeah.
And then I said, all right, cool. And then they said, what colour are you going to do? I said, I'm going like really bright green. And they said, no, can we have it in black?
Oh, dear.
So went for black.
After saying do what you want.
We built them before. The reason we don't get asked for them that often. We actually more often than not get asked for cabs to a certain spec that go inside an isolation box.
Right.
You know, like a slightly larger box that isn't a cabinet. It's designed to contain the sound of,
like a big road case thing.
Yeah. So we get asked to do those more. But yeah, we've done them. They sound cool. It's really funny when you're there with the door open it.
Yeah.
Really loud, really quiet.
Yeah. But hey, if you crank a 100-watt amp up, one of those is still pretty loud, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much dampening you can do. Saw a backstage video, I think it was Avenged Sevenfold, and one of their guys had a 100-watt ISO cab, and blasting it, you still couldn't have a conversation next to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then he was using a 100-watt James Brown designed amp. You know, it was the Hellwinds, basically a 5150 on steroids, on full. And that makes sense. No matter how much you isolate that, the low end's gonna... It was the low end that was the killer. The top end was all muffled off. But oh boy.
It's all in the design of the door for keeping silent.
Right.
The ones we've done have been pretty quiet. You'd be really surprised.
I'd be pleasantly surprised. I'd be happy to do so.
But the trouble is, they're so involved that the price goes up.
Right.
It kind of scares a lot of people off.
Mm.
They're really cool pieces of kit, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice.
One of the things that I saw a while back, which I've not seen anybody talk about, is Randall, for a little while, made a 4x12. But the 4x12 actually didn't have any speakers facing forward. You opened the back up and it had one speaker in, and it was an ISO cab.
Yeah, right.
Which
Yeah.
I really like that idea, because then you could have it on the stage and it actually was a cabinet and was doing a cabinet job, but you weren't getting a face full of noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I've not seen anyone with one of those, so I wonder if they just didn't sell well, or what. Like you say, it's
Yeah, people just generally not that into them.
no.
I think one way of, I mean, there's two things going on when you're playing really loud. You've got your amp that's sounding a certain way, but you can do that with an attenuator, and then you've got your speaker that's sounding a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think most people just go for the attenuator.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't really think of the speaker breakup. And I think most of that kind of sound, if you're going for that, like ideally I'd be playing on a stage with, 8 4x12s and 400 watt heads.
Yeah.
If you're minded that way, you want to get closer to that sound, you just get an attenuator and pull the output down that way, rather than be wanting to achieve that speaker breakup.
Well, I suppose that's where you end up with kind of, well, why not have an attenuator but use like a virtual output for the front of house at that point, and then we get to using things like, I don't know, shameless plug, the GGD Zilla plugin. I mean,
yeah, you could do. I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always a solution for everybody at this point. Let's see. There was another question that I saw. Oh, there we go. So this is more of a technical question. What options do ZILLA cabs have to isolate the speakers from the studio floor? I mean, my answer there was obviously just a second ZILLA cab underneath, obviously, but
that's the answer to everything. Buy two. There's different ways of doing it. You can literally put it on a stand on another cab. I know when I've been in the studio with Nolly, he's used breeze blocks a lot. I actually prefer the sound of the cab on the floor.
Ooh, controversial. Ooh, dun dun dun.
There's a lot of hate for what I say about that, but I tend to, if I'm in the studio, I'll go with whatever the producer or the engineer says, because they know the room,
right?
They know the mics, they know everything. I may know the cab better than them, but they know the 101 other things in the chain better than me. So I just, I'd concentrate on playing.
Right.
But yeah, just getting it off the floor. Breeze blocks seems to be a popular one with people that I really respect. So I guess, I don't know if there's anything particular in that, or they're just achieving it, getting it off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, does that mean that you'll be able to make like a breeze block option for some of the cabs that kind of it comes with
snakeskin breeze blocks?
Yeah. Oh no, that's getting really fancy right there. Because one of the suggestions that I saw in the chat was to use those big casters, which I know all those options. I know you do those kind of options, because at the end of the day, it's a completely bespoke setup, isn't it? So whatever people need,
you can pretty much have whatever you want.
Yeah.
Again, the casters things, I treat them as more of a functional thing. The cabs will sound different on casters to on the floor. It's just how the cab's coupled to the floor. And it also massively depends on what floor you've got.
Yes.
So we were lucky. The studio we've got was a stone floor laid on a bed of sand. So it had quite a unique sound, and then we carpeted it. That room sounds quite nice.
I have to say, I've liked the guitar sounds that you guys have been getting, because since I started my YouTube channel, you guys are now hot on my heels. You're producing very regular content. Is that all down to Joe, or was it your idea, or was it literally just Joe saying, I've got an idea?
Now, what usually happens is I'll talk about doing something for 5 or 6 years, and then all of a sudden just be like, right, we're doing it now. Right. I mean, the first videos we put up there was, we went into the studio it was the first time I met Joe, actually, 2014. So 6 years at May, 6 years ago, and we went in and recorded a bunch of cabs. Now the guy doing it actually only made 3 of the videos and put them up on the YouTube. But then we got all the footage like a couple of years ago,
right?
And it took us a year from getting that footage. And we built the kind of studio in the old workshop. It was literally, we just put some wallpaper up on the section so it looked nice on camera.
I'm surprised you had any space in there. I went round there. I've got some footage of that old space, and it wasn't a small space, but it was full of cabs.
You should have seen it at the end.
Really?
It was, oh man, yeah. It was, when we were moving out, we got to a point where right at the end of the move, I said to Joe, how many trips do you reckon this is in a big like transit style van? I was thinking this is probably about 6 trips left. He goes, oh, like at least 12. And I was thinking, what are you talking about? Then 12 trips later, I looked at it and I thought, there's more than 12 left in it. It was ridiculous. We were just for months emptying the unit.
Was it mostly just stock or materials or?
Well, what happens is when I'm messing around with cabs, often like things won't work out halfway through the build, or for when I'm messing around with things, or I start doing it and I want to change it. Because as soon as the cab's kind of glued up, you can start kind of telling what's going on with it.
Right.
So there's loads of cabs that are kind of R&D at various stages. It's better for consistency if you build in small batches.
Right.
So you may build 50 of one kind of cab, or whatever. Oh, the woodwork.
Right.
So you've got a load of them, because there's loads of different ranges and all that kind of stuff. You would just end up with loads of cabs everywhere.
Yeah, when I went in the old place, we were climbing over things just to get around at some points. Paul gave me a bit of a tour, and upstairs, oh my word, the kind of the upper floor, it was just a gantry just full of wood upon wood upon wood. It was insane. So I believe you've moved to a much bigger space. You want to tell us about the new place, because it looks lovely.
Well, the actual
I've not seen the inside of the unit, but I've seen the space that you're in Cornwall.
The view outside looks lovely. Now inside it's it's an older unit, but we're having to do it up a little bit.
Right.
But it's nice. We needed the space. It just what I was trying to get the unit next door, either side at the old place to expand into. It just wasn't working. Finding it hard to find new space, and then this place came up, and we just went for it.
It's a significant distance away from your old place, isn't it?
Yeah, I set the business up down here back in 2006. So I started it down in Cornwall, and then moved up to London, and then slowly kind of kept moving back. As I think one of the biggest things that kind of hinders businesses over in the UK is the ability to expand into or contract into a different size unit. It really was hindering us. We couldn't do things. I couldn't take on more staff because there wasn't the space. There's a lot of safety that you have to consider with that stuff. Now, especially with the whole COVID thing, it's kind of a godsend, the space. We've had a new guy start, and I was very worried about. I didn't want to bring stuff up here because we can isolate quite well up here, and because we're new to the area, we don't have all the connections and everything, so there's not a massive need for us to be going out all the time.
Yeah.
So there's loads of space in here. When Gary, the new chap, started, we just built a bench that we could wheel around, wheel it next to the big roller door, and it's so you've got space for stuff like that.
Yeah, that would never have been able to happen in the old place. So massive thing. Just going back to something that you said earlier, the videos that you did with Joe in 2014. I didn't know that you didn't know Joe at that point, because anyone who's seen the videos on the Zilla channel, Joe is the guy with the majestic beard and the great guitar chops.
The one who can play guitar good.
And it's up for a long while now. It's been you and him, hasn't it? Has he been there a little bit, or has he basically lived in each other's back pockets? Because I don't know Joe very well. So tell us a bit about...
Yeah, he started October, what would that have been? 2016. So coming up to 4 years.
Right.
And again, that was we'd been talking ever since, or almost ever since, I met him at the recording studio. But the unit I was in back then, before the place that you came to, was smaller still, and it was the same situation. So there wasn't the space and all the safety stuff and that. And I knew I was going to be moving, so to another unit. So so when that worked out, that was good.
Well,
but
sorry, go on.
I was going to say I want to take someone else, or we've just had Gary come. He's kind of part-time, hopefully kind of works out, but I want to get a couple more guys or girls, whatever, up here.
Absolutely. It's from what I can tell, when Joe came on board, it was the right kind of person, where I'm imagining that he was there just during the day for a little while, and then before you know it, neither of you ever leaves. Because he's just moved from Somerset down to Cornwall with you. That's a big jump for anybody. So
it is. Yeah.
So
totally.
That must be so rewarding, having it's relatively small staff, let's be honest, but having somebody with you who believes in it, that's the most important thing for a small company, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I gave him a Mesa Boogie stiletto as well as a bribe, so
and he's still paying it off today. Fantastic. Any more questions from the chat before we round this out, because the hour is getting late, as it were. So let's just see if there's anything more pops up. Get them questions in quick, or forever hold your peace. I'll just ask a quick one while we wait for anything else to come in. What is your favorite guitar cab and or guitar tone of all time, and does it influence your builds?
Ooh. Right, obviously I'm going to talk non-Zilla here. So what's my favorite non?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I think that's what they're getting at. Is aside from what you do, or even before you started the company, what to you says that's the sound?
Right, I'm just trying to think of those times when because of a cab, the sound, when you plugged that particular cab in and it just sounded so good and you knew it was from the cab, would be a late 70s Marshall with some black backs, the H 55 hertz bass resonance. That is my favorite speaker. I like Marshall 4x12s. I think they used to be built a lot better than they are now. But I still like them. I think they also, there's that thing where, and this sounds dumb, but I remember seeing them on stage with the bands I loved and seeing them in photos and in studios, and they were everywhere. And I think the contours on them just look really nice. And then Marshall would in the past do different colors and stuff like that, which is very much obviously down my street.
Yes.
So they were like, obviously most of them are black, but there's that kind of like treat every now and then.
I remember seeing a purple head and cab combo and just going, I want that. I must have been 14 and had no money, but I knew I wanted it.
yeah, and that cab is probably the one. But I love the old Fenders. I've really got a thing for Silverface Twins at the moment.
Yeah.
And a lot of that in the sound there, a lot of most of it's the amp and the speakers, but the cab is very particular on those.
Right.
And it does bring a big aspect to the sound there.
Now's a really good time to talk about how the Celestion speakers sound, because John from Celestion has just entered in the chat. Hi, John. So, yeah. I mean, that's probably a good question to end it on without being too heavily biased just because one of the guys from Celestion is in the chat. Most of the speakers that you use, and actually all of the speakers that I have in my Zillas, are all from Celestion. Yep. General question, why them? Why not others?
This isn't because John's on.
Yeah.
I don't care who's listening to this. I'd say this 10 times every day. When I first started, I was a 20-year-old. When I knew I was going to do this, I was a 20-year-old working in my mum's garage. And it was quite clear from the way I would speak to people and ask questions, because I had no idea about the industry. It was quite clear this was a 20-year-old working from his mum's garage doing prototypes. My email address was probably my university email address, so .ac.uk, so they knew I weren't some big CEO. And they were the only company that spoke to me like I was a company.
Yeah.
They were the only company that spoke to me that they clearly had the attitude that you don't know, they could be the next Marshall. I mean,
could be the next.
It's a long way
Zilla,
off.
hey.
But you know what I mean. I mean, last month I had 6 pallet loads of speakers delivered. Yeah. Right. So when I first started, I was asking about, 1 or 2 greenbacks, and they didn't care. I mean, I'm on the same price scheme as I was then.
Right.
They just treat me so good, but also I do think they're the best speakers. The failure rate is just fantastic. If anything goes wrong, there's no questions asked, really. The questions that would be asked would be what went wrong, and it would be to improve or to find out. If it's a niggle in the speaker or something. Yeah. And while we're on the subject of failure rates,
yes,
forget all the rubbish about Chinese-made speakers. I want to get political or anything. I'm not no big lover of China and a lot of the stuff over there. I would and I'm not going to bang on about buying British or anything. I don't really care. I want to buy stuff that's good.
Yeah.
But I would actively avoid buying from China. But the Chinese-made speakers that Celestion made,
yes,
are just fantastic. The failure rate is next to zero, and the consistency is so good. Yeah.
It makes sense.
But I love the range. I think for guitar, the speakers they do are just so good. There's ones that maybe I don't like so much, but there's players that love those speakers.
Yeah. I know there's a few that you like that I can't stand, like the 65s. I think it sounds like someone's playing through cardboard. But
you know what? I went through a phase of actually switching more towards you on that one. But lately, we built a cab for someone that just sounded so amazing. I actually went and bought 100 of those G1265s. I loved them so much. Wow. I thought I'm never being out of stock of these. It was, I don't know. I think maybe you've got to go at them in a particular way.
Right.
I don't think it's an everyman speaker.
Yeah.
Maybe like a M Creamback or a vintage 30, I think can be used for maybe not every man, but
yeah, in a pinch, few people are going to complain about a vintage 30 as opposed to some other more particular tones. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Next time you're down in the workshop, I'm going to get one of these cabs out, and I'm going to change your mind about the G1265 because it just sounded so good. You know when a piece of gear sounds so good,
yeah,
you don't care if it sounds like the thing you normally play. You just play it.
Yes, that's
how this sounded.
Yeah, so when you start playing and 10 minutes later you look up and go, huh? What were you saying? Yeah.
That's so maybe not in a 4x12. I think it's a different thing. And I tell you what, put them in a silver face twin.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Right.
It's the perfect speaker for it.
I'll keep that in mind. I mean, I've just got myself a black face twin, which I'm going to be playing around with. I've got some Celestion Golds, which I'm going to be trying in there, see how that goes. Because I've heard that's a good combo.
A lot of the people who like the 65s like the Golds.
Right. I will definitely
find, and then people like for the sound that I would go for if I was playing guitar live.
Yeah.
Very much not a Gold or a 65.
Awesome.
I think you find people that like one, like the other, don't like one, don't like the other.
Just quickly hold my phone up to the screen. The height of technology. This is the floor of my my work, my live room right now. Those are all Celestians.
You've got a lot of vintage 30s there.
Yeah, 6 vintage 30s there. Some creamback M's, some golds. There's all sorts. But yeah, that's just the floor of the studio, and that's not counting what's in all the cabinets. It's and then I've got a rack at the back that's got 6 or 7 different Celestians on. It's getting silly.
The floor is the best place to keep them. People should. You need to talk to Joe about that. He's always going on about me putting them in boxes.
Yeah,
the studio is pretty much like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know I should put them all in boxes and stuff, but it's a carpeted floor and there's nobody else in there but me, and I know nobody's going to stand on them.
They look good as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You walk in and you go, speakers, yes. But yes. All right, so let's see. Was that another question, the final question? No.
Is there one from John saying he's going to give me better prices now for saying that?
Here's hoping, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, Paul, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back later this week, and we'll be putting out lots of fantastic videos for you all. Tune in next week, where we'll be bringing you the news and hopefully another special guest. Same time, same back channel, 8 p.m. UK time on the Hop Pole Studios podcast on our channel. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.